Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Trey Gowdy, and it's Sunday night in America. President Trump is close to the cabinet he wants, as Kash Patel and Howard Lutnick are set to be confirmed early this week. The only casualty was Matt Gaetz, which really wasn't a casualty at all. Pam Bondi is a significant upgrade, a real prosecutor with real experience. Bondi moved quickly to put blue cities and states on notice about deportations and sanctuary city status. With the people in place, focus now turns to policy. The left cannot stop the Trump agenda, but his own party can. There is uncertainty over the House budget resolution. Some fiscal hawks demand cuts, which could impact moderate Republican districts, taxes and border security and energy independence. All the things the president campaigned on may depend on navigating those narrow margins and different viewpoints. The left has been reduced to speeches and rallies and lawsuits. Cutting waste and fraud and abuse and duplication should not be controversial. But the left is clinging to the fourth branch of government, the administrative branch, which, as you know, you will not find in the Constitution because it doesn't exist. Sean Hannity has an interview with the president and his most famous volunteer employee airing Tuesday. Here's a snippet.
They want a divorce. They want you two to start hating each other. And they try, President Elon Musk, for example. You do know that they're doing that to you.
Oh, I see it all the time. They tried it, then they stopped. That wasn't. They have many different things of hatred. Actually, Elon called me. He said, "You know, they're trying to drive us apart." I said, "Absolutely."
Joining us is James Blair, Deputy Chief of Staff for President Trump. Welcome, Mr. Blair. Thank you for being with us. You know, the House struggled to implement President Trump's agenda his first term, even with a larger margin. Can this budget resolution get over the finish line?
Well, look, I mean, I think that they're really trying to make some progress, and I think they have made progress this week, which is a great sign. And obviously, the other chamber in the Senate is working a bit of a different track. But what's important, as the president has said, is he is not too concerned about the how. He is concerned about the what. And what's important to President Trump is that the promises he made the American voters ultimately end up there. So those are things like no tax on tips, renewing the 2017 tax cuts, no tax on overtime pay, no tax on Social Security, all of these things, right? And I think that from our perspective, one of the things that's going to happen is ultimately the final framework is going to have to account for a couple of things that are going on that it doesn't right now. One of that is Elon Musk and the work that Doge is doing. What they're doing right now is the first most significant attempt to cut government and cut spending, perhaps ever in America, but certainly in the last 50 years. And two, it doesn't account for revenues that are going to come in from tariffs. And those are two things that ultimately have to be part of the conversation that will help affect some of the math in a way that makes everything we're talking about more achievable from a balancing perspective.
All right, speaking of Mr. Musk, the D.C. media is clearly trying to drive a wedge between Musk and the president. Time magazine put Elon at the Resolute desk. Is Musk doing anything other than exactly what the president has instructed him to do? I mean, Musk is working for Donald Trump, not vice versa.
Oh, absolutely. The left is scared. I mean, that's what it comes down to. First, this is a great partnership. They are great friends. And what has happened here is President Trump has deputized Elon to go out and find waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. Like I said, the biggest attempt that's ever occurred. And I think Elon really is uniquely qualified and capable of doing that. For those, I saw Jamie Raskin or someone saying this is about getting rid of the fraud layer. I mean, Elon Musk is literally the richest man in the world. This is not about money. This is about saving the country to him, and he is operating within the bounds of the mandate that President Trump has given him. And what you're seeing is the American people agree with it. So the Democrats have put themselves in a very strange position where they are tethering themselves to the defense of a nameless, faceless bureaucracy that has wasted billions, if not hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars over the decades for really no return to the American people. And that's why the American people support it. So look, what President Trump and Elon are doing together is great. The media is upset about it because it's working. And frankly, we've seen a lot of the media was profiting from that graft as well, based on some of the payments to media organizations we've seen be revealed.
All right, let's move overseas. Congratulations, first of all, on getting an American school teacher back home. Talks are kind of ramping up about the war in Eastern Europe. Do you expect Ukraine will participate in settlement talks about the Russian invasion of that country that take place in Saudi Arabia?
Well, look, again, what you've seen this past week is President Trump doing what he campaigned on. He campaigned on bringing a lasting peace to the region. This week, he spoke with Presidents Putin and Zelensky, a number of our European allies, and obviously we had the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, the Vice President, all in Europe, talking to our European allies about the path forward. And ultimately, we do think peace will be achieved. President Trump is optimistic about that. But what has been made clear, and what Secretary Bessent went to Kyiv to make clear, was that peace must take into account American interests. The American people have generously financed the defense of Ukraine over the last several years, and they were promised for that to be paid back. And the settlement talks have to incorporate that promise. And two, it is important that we forge economic ties, deep economic bonds with Ukraine going forward. That is the number one way to ensure a lasting peace. Americans know it, the Ukrainians know it, and most importantly, the Russians know it. So ultimately, both sides have acknowledged that only President Trump has the strength to bring them to the table, and that's what we expect to see here in the coming weeks and hopefully make great progress on the road to lasting peace.
I referenced Pam Bondi in the opening. She is already making headway in blue states and cities, putting them on notice. But something else happened I want to ask you about. There have been some legal pundits. Andy McCarthy is no George Soros prosecutor. He has defended the president in the past more times than I can count. But he is raising questions and others about the dismissal of the Eric Adams indictment. Was the dismissal based on a dearth of evidence, to incent cooperation, or for other reasons?
Well, I think there's a couple of things at play. First of all, this prosecution was really political from the beginning. In September of 2023, Mayor Adams went out and criticized the Biden administration, saying that their lack of border enforcement was going to destroy the city. And President Trump predicted he would be indicted, and indeed he was a year later. And they've been fast-tracking this prosecution throughout the process. There was an enormous amount of data as part of the discovery that was released, and they are trying to fast-track through that, so there really can't even be arguably a good defense mounted. So there's been a lot of tactical things that have happened that really lead everyone to believe that this is a very politicized prosecution. Two, and perhaps more importantly, it has jeopardized the national security issue of getting the deportation process going in New York City. And maybe that's what they wanted to do all along, I don't know. But when Mayor Adams was indicted, he lost his security clearance, which has made it basically impossible for he and his administration to communicate with the FBI and the U.S. Attorney, which is critical to the deportation agenda. And this is really about putting that issue ahead of what has appeared to be a very politicized prosecution that has a lot of things that have happened throughout the process that are very questionable, and that's really just what it's about.
James Blair, thank you for joining us on a Sunday night. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Trey.